Lynn Cullen live in 1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
Okay. We're up. I'm sorry. Oh, gosh. All right. Hello. Hi. Man. Mr. Sokolowski, so nice to see you.
Oh, yes.
Thank you. Must be Thursday. In fact, it is the 21st. And, have a few things.
Good. Have you been, well, first off, when you said that, have you been following any or all of the Kennedy anniversary?
You know, when I said that, 21, I didn't read it yesterday. The headline was enough to make me laugh.
That's sort of incongruous.
I know. But it was enough.
One bullet or two.
Who's that? And I'm blanking on his name. Reg Henry.
Yes.
PG.
Yes.
Who yesterday wrote a piece, and he was very careful, I think, because I think I read the first
paragraph. He's very peculiar.
He is, but I like his. He said.
He's Australian, isn't he?
Yes.
Yes, right.
No offense, but he said he's suffering from anniversary fatigue. And I know what he means.
Yeah, it's like for the last 2 weeks.
It's like
news,
150, 150 of the
yes.
Gettysburg Address, 50 of JFK.
50 of Martin Luther King.
50 of Martin Luther King.
Past.
And I just saw there was something in the paper today, something about 65th anniversary of something coming.
Of the bra.
Whatever. And I have to tell you, I personally don't like this sort of forced marking of who's decided when.
Well,
I understand the big O numbers, like the 50s.
But I think it's fair to say, though, I mean, in terms of if people say, in this country, the three things, I mean, at least globally, were Pearl Harbor, the Kennedy assassination, and 9/11, because they were the three times that the country was attacked on its turf, so to speak. And I think that's why we felt so vulnerable, because America has always felt, at least in our lifetimes. But we don't
necessarily do that. I mean, like, you could say that the worst terrorist attack on the United States prior to 9/11 was the bombing in Oklahoma City. Do we mark that one?
Oh, that's true. Well, but the only thing was, though, that one was, and I think that may be the difference, that one was one of ourn. I think it's no, but the fact that Lee Harvey Oswald was like a pseudo-Russian. I mean,
he was an American.
World War VII. December 7th was obviously the Japanese, and
but
9/11.
I don't think even with December 7th, I don't think that.
Well, I think if you were a certain age, you would certainly know. We weren't born.
I understand, but I just don't think that, like, 10 years after, whenever a baseball game started up, everybody stood and remembered the fall. You know what? It's just this.
I think that's obviously, we've talked about this, and other people certainly have as well. The news. I mean, everything. Just I thought of that the other day with when was that? We had that wind coming in Illinois, and
yes.
And severe weather. And I was watching some stupid television show, and every 10 minutes they had that jerk from Channel 11. Severe weather, and he said the exact same thing every 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And I thought, it's not severe for us. It is for someone else. Enough already.
You know what's amazing, though, when you do look, if you saw any of the...
oh, no, it was dreadful.
When you look at the devastation of a just wiped out, a town wiped out, and then the death toll so low.
No. Well, right, yeah.
So low. It's
Well, so maybe that has to say maybe there's a point to the journalism and that people got into their root cellars and got out of the way.
Yeah.
But it's just, it's so whipped up.
Well, everything is, and I think that's what it is. Everything gets overdone.
Right, exactly.
Nobody knows when to stop.
Well,
I do like the idea.
Normalcy is not newsworthy.
Okay, but I do like the idea of, having a major event noted, because it does educate generations that were not there. So all of this Kennedy coverage is, one would hope, educating young people who weren't there. That is, if they bother to watch or listen.
I thought of one thing, and you were the one who introduced me to this. I thought of that piece by the writer Tom Jode.
Juno.
Oh, is it in the Esquire?
Junod, yeah.
Oh, okay, Juno, yeah. About man falling or whatever the title of the article is.
Yes.
I mean, because that I thought was something that looked at 9/11, now more than 10 years old, 10 years in the past, with a real clear eye about how did we cover it, what did we really think about it, what was okay to reveal and what wasn't. And so much, now again, so much of this evidence is all hidden away in the pink suit we won't see on our lifetime. But the thing is, you would think, would there be someone, because everything I've read has always, on this in the last week and a half, about the Kennedy assassination, has been nostalgic and maudlin. There's really been no new evidence or no new questioning in a thoughtful way about what was there. And you would think 50 years later, haven't we got past? I mean, I heard Cyril Wecht, who was articulate, but I've heard what he said many times before. And then this guy who's saying Johnson set it all up, etc. But no one, even if it wasn't about something revelatory, there was just like no new perspective.
Well, and eventually, I don't know. I don't know. Just because it's 50 years later doesn't mean there's going to be some great breakthrough that everybody's going to say,
I think the only thing I read, this is the first time I think in all of this, people have realized. It was very funny. There was a quote the other day in the paper. Where was it? I think it was the Times. Anyway, where someone saw Kennedy when he was still a senator, and he was in the cloakroom at the Senate, whatever it is, about to go out into the Senate chamber. And he was standing in front of the mirror, and he said, "Oh, God did make me beautiful." And I thought, whoa!
Wow.
So that was a silly thing. But every night it gave you the sense of his hubris in a very Greek way of, beauty, kalas agathos, to be good-looking and to be well thought of. The two were conjoined. But also enough of people saying, like, he wasn't really good. He was sort of not so smart a lot of times. And, it was his jeunesse dorée, as the French would say, golden youth, that carried him through. And I think that's probably what America needed. I stand very much behind that. But he wasn't very prescient. I mean, it turns out that, moldy old Ike and, jerky old LBJ were really rather fabulous presidents.
Well, we'll see. I mean, the fact is Kennedy didn't have much of a chance to establish a presidency and a legacy in that regard. He had 3 years.
Right,
but
Bay of Pigs.
Well, the Bay of Pigs was an absolute fiasco.
And his meeting with Khrushchev was not so great.
Yeah, but, he might have grown. I don't think he was
Well, fair enough.
Idiot.
Yeah, fair enough. I didn't say he was an idiot,
right.
But I think he rolled on his beauty and his family.
It's all he knew. It's all he knew. He had been part of this golden family all his life, and I mean that's who he was. Yeah,
but they were golden and they were also corrupt too.
Yes. I
mean, look at all this stuff. Do you have anything in there about the Skakels and that whole
Yeah.
Ooh, that's just they're almost broke, it seems.
So I said the other day, I just want to get into some old news.
Old
business.
Right. Old business,
I guess, if we can do this as an agenda.
She's emptying out her outbox.
Well, this came actually yesterday. It was an email from one of you, and I really appreciated it and wanted to share it, but because I had Jared Day on, and we were talking about political things in a very serious manner.
Very thoughtful, but
yes.
it was a wonderful show.
Yeah, well, his brain is just full of stuff.
Un gran
Actually,
cervellone.
after the show, he was talking about the fact that he would like, next time he's on, and we're going to have him once a month, next time he's on, to talk about, again, this false idea that Americans have of the New Deal and of FDR and that big change, that transition from capitalism run amok right into a depression to this effort to, through government spending and government works, create jobs and pull us out. Right. Everybody, he says, it was a disaster.
Yeah, in many ways.
Initially. And in every way. I mean, and the Supreme Court was tossing his underpinnings of the program out, saying no. They did not do with the Affordable Care Act, but, just throwing things out and saying no, unconstitutional. So we forget that, progress that has been made, what do we think? It was made easily or like bang,
well, I just started a new book by, do you know this writer, Noah Feldman?
I know of him.
He's this extraordinary guy. I once was on a panel with him and then got to know him a little bit. He is a scholar number one, his minor was in Judaica, Jewish history. Yeah. But his major was in Arabic things. And when we took over Iraq and there was the transition, he was the only academic to help draft the Iraqi constitution, the new Iraqi constitution. But anyway, he's now moved. He was teaching at NYU at the time. And he's written really interesting things about Christianity and Islam. But now he's been teaching in law school at Harvard for the last 5-6 years. And he's just written an interesting new book, a couple new books, but one of them is just about some of the mishigas going on during Roosevelt's time. Mm-hmm. And I would highly recommend any of his books. He's really articulate and writes very clearly and very fluidly. So really bright guy, young guy, too.
Thank you.
Early 40s.
Yeah, thank you. So anyway, I had the day before, I guess that would have been Tuesday, had shared with you the news story that I saw in the sports section of the New York Times that a football player who plays for Denver, which is you don't care.
In Colorado.
Yes, yes, it's in Colorado.
In the United States.
Yes, that's true. And they're having a hell of a year. Peyton Manning is there, and they're like 9-1, and so those guys look like they're definitely going to the playoffs. And this is a 3-year player, not a great player. He gets into games. He's not a starter.
This is college or
no? This is
professional
pros,
okay.
And he had been with the Seattle Seahawks, and he still lives in Seattle, and he's been struggling this season. Not necessarily, he's been struggling with some injuries because they're all injured all the time,
right.
All the time. But he got on the phone and called the big guy at the top of the organization, John Elway, who was a remarkable quarterback in his day, and he said, "Mr. Elway, you know what? I'm sorry. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to sacrifice my health."
Wow.
And my future for this. I can't do it. And he quit.
Wow.
Now, as far as I know, that's the first active player that in the middle of the season has said, no mas. I'm not going to do this. And
did he say, I wonder, I would think on one level that maybe he had some medical...
No. He has no.
No. But I mean, like someone saying, like you get bashed in the head a few more times.
Well, but you couldn't say that to any football player. He did not have any more injuries, and maybe fewer in many ways than some. He just he's articulate and he's
being
educated,
logical about the chances,
and he's reading all this stuff that's coming
about
out.
Concussions,
and
right,
he's already had a number of concussions because he's been playing since he was a kid. And he already has had surgeries on elbows and thises and that's and blew out both his shoulders and a knee and he's thinking,
what? It's a mess.
And he's he's not getting paid all that much.
No.
But by saying I'm done.
Right.
He sacrificed the remainder of his $625,000. He's 20-some years old. It's a lot of money.
Yeah, it is.
It's a lot, not for a football player, but it's
still,
a lot of money.
Well, parenthetically, I have a friend who's 75, but in his youth did boxing. Mm-hmm. And he just went to his eye doctor, and they have some new machine and they said, "Oh, sir, we've just seen something that probably happened like 45 years ago, but you may go blind from a kind of concussion you had."
So that
and this
much
guy,
later
he
can happen.
did boxing, but he was not, Sugar Ray Leonard or someone like that. I mean, it's frightening.
So this guy made that calculation, and the interesting thing was...
good for him.
Yeah, but everyone in his circle is saying, "Are you nuts?" Mm-hmm. So nobody understands why he did it. That he left because...
He doesn't want to be a vegetable.
Okay, exactly right. So here, Ed wrote something that I thought was just fascinating. He said, "I worked for 33 years at a job that stressed me out to the point of illness. I had less than 3 years until I got a full pension. When talking to a friend about my situation, he said to me, 'What's a year of your life worth?' I started immediately planning my early exit. I gave up about 30% of my monthly pension, but I am a happy puppy. That football player is both wise and smart. One more thing. My job was working with the disabled. Particularly difficult were my head-injured clients. That young man may never know how important his decision will be." So here's a guy, one of our own, part of our family, who made the same kind of calculation.
Yeah,
exactly. And I think there are a lot of people who toy with that idea and don't have... I think it takes courage to do it.
Well, think
don't
of how
have
many
the courage.
people
They can't imagine
who put away some money, not wealthy people, and they could be very comfortable, travel, and then they, cancer or inability to move except in a wheelchair. And, I remember one of my aunts would always say, "The golden years, and it's true. And you think, at what point? And all right, you can leave your kids money, which was perfectly fine. But at what point?
Well, life is short.
Life is short,
I mean,
yes.
I don't know. It just, whatever. I mean, but people who make the calculation for money as opposed to quality of your own life and enjoyment of your own life, it's probably a stupid move in many ways. I don't know.
And it's very funny because, we can say, the athlete, $625,000. But it really is a kind of heroic thing to say, I'd much rather work at Walgreens.
I think it's heroic.
And have time with my family and see my kids grow up as opposed to being a vegetable. I remember years and years and years ago, my father would always tell the story. There was a guy in our neighborhood, and this was working class, south side of Chicago, blue collar, ethnic America. And he would say whenever someone wanted some kid who was good at football, in high school, he wanted, the kid would say, "I want to be, in the amateur, and I want to play for the White Sox," or whatever, or the Cubs, or the Bears, or what have you. They would say, "Take him to see Mr. Piatkowski." And this guy who made it to 1 year, this was in the 30s or something, to play with the Bears, I guess, or something. This guy at that point wasn't that old, maybe 69, 70, but he was so broken up, had arthritis.
Yeah.
And the kid, he talked to these kids and scared the shit out of them. Like, "Look at me. What am I? I'm sitting in the back on a chair growing tomatoes. Don't do it."
Maybe they'll start having these scared straight programs for football players.
With broken up old athletes.
For high school football players.
Well, really?
Bring in the old guy. Yeah, bring in their heroes.
Because, we've talked about this, but at what point, what could you be, queen of the prom or the touchdown king? At that age, it's like the most extraordinary thing in your life, and there'll probably never be anything else like it. And so no one wants to give it up. You got to show the dark side.
All right, so just on the way in on the bus, this is just for a little levity for a second.
Okay.
I don't follow R. Kelly. I suppose you don't. Do you know?
Love him.
You love him? Well, I want to know if you've it says here that on Tuesday, he proved once and for all that he can improvise.
The sex dolphin. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you. The headline says he improvised sex songs about dolphins.
And sandwiches.
And sandwiches. But I'm more dolphins caught my eye. So I mean, so what does he know? What does R. Kelly know about sex with dolphins?
It wasn't really
About sex with dolphins. Do you know the song?
Yeah, I heard it. Do you want me to find it? We can play
Yeah,
it.
but okay, but it's not really about sex with okay.
Not really.
And
Kind
also
of like he wanted to have sex like the dolphins.
have sex like a dolphin. Okay,
Yeah.
so it wasn't the dolphin.
How do dolphins have sex?
Well, I thought I told you.
Well, is it time to retell the story?
No, it is not. And then the other title, which is pretty funny,
Yeah,
is
Italian.
Italian Hero Sandwich of Love.
There were like 4 or 5 of them. but
Yeah.
those were the two.
Now, is this a rapper?
Yeah,
Singer.
Singer.
you wouldn't call him a rapper.
He doesn't rap, no, not really.
No, not really. Okay, I just saw that. I saw that, and yeah.
we know.
Well, you know, dolphins and
Yeah,
anything about dolphins, I do look. I feel connected.
Yeah,
I do.
right, exactly.
I do. I can't help myself. Okay, so Ed has written us something about, is his name Trey Radel? Is that how it's pronounced? This is the wonderful Florida Republican conservative congressman, Tea Party type, who is a freshman and got busted the other day for buying coke from an undercover.
Oh, right. Yes.
Him. So he's pled guilty, and you know the thing I saw though that he had to. It was a misdemeanor charge. Do you know?
Buying coke is a misdemeanor?
Yes, in D.C. Now listen to this. If he were in Florida, his own wonderful
be
state,
hung.
it'd be a felon,
Yeah, I
a
think so.
felony. And here again, it's never been clearer to me that where you choose to live, what state you are in, will have an impact on perhaps the quality of your life. You look at
We'll leave that at the door of the founding fathers.
well, yeah, no, when you look at the, even with the healthcare thing and the exchanges and who has options and who doesn't, it depends on what state you live in.
I think, is it Oregon? Oregon or Washington? It was on the news yesterday, and they have their own...
Oregon, probably.
Yeah, they are at 99% of, and it's only, the 15th, 20th of November.
So, you know, and it's not as though, I mean, like, I sometimes think, if I were more mobile and I didn't have so many roots down.
Yes,
And I were a young person.
Right.
I can see packing my bags
Go
and
to a state that's
getting out
more-
of this state for a lot of reasons. Because of the lack of progressivism, where we are on gay matters, where we are in terms of giving away everything to the oil companies.
Well, but the
where
thing
we
about
are-
that, Lynn, is that's fluid. Now, you and I are of a certain age. If we moved, and let's say we had 25 more years.
Fine, you can just pick up and keep moving.
Oh,
to the
well,
next
all right,
best
fair
day.
enough. But I guess my point was has every state always been a blue state?
Well, I mean, but you know that generally if you go...
Well, all right, fair enough.
If you go
Fair
east, northeast...
Yes, that's right. Yes,
And
that's true.
we're the holdout because Pennsylvania
Right,
is
should be.
essentially northeast,
The
and
keystone.
but there's too much of us that is whatever. I don't know.
Alabama.
I can see why. Really, if
Oh,
I was a
yeah.
young person starting, especially if I was a gay young person starting,
right.
there's no way. I
Although
would take
the
a
states
job
now
in a-
flipping over are amazing.
They're starting to
What's the
go.
one that just flipped yesterday? Wait.
Illinois.
That's right. My home
Well,
state.
Illinois
That's
and Ohio are both. I mean, in Iowa Illinois and Hawaii were the last two.
That's right, that's right.
And it will continue apace. And,
Oh, yeah,
and
it's
I'll
certainly
tell
going
you,
to.
keeping my eye on the ACLU case against Pennsylvania, which should be heard in the spring, I'm getting the impression that case is probably going to be a win.
Mm-hmm.
And so Pennsylvania may go into that column, but not legislatively, which you would prefer. That's the people of the state
Right.
doing it correctly, like Illinois, like Hawaii. But instead we would get to a place of equality because a black-robed judge put a gun to our heads, like Iowa, and I would think Pennsylvania. So it still doesn't.
But we also could be the province of Ontario and have a coke-smoking, babe-kissing mayor.
Well, I think he's just wonderful for comic relief. I really do.
Well,
I mean,
he's also changing the view of the Canadians as being so sort of
it's just such
circumspect.
A train wreck. Such a train wreck.
But what's interesting, to me, the most interesting thing, especially given our form of government, that he can't be removed. That's what's so interesting. They've taken all his money away and they've taken most of his staff.
Well, you know what? We have the same thing here with Luke. Let's say they found Luke. We can't. There's no recall. There's no. We can't really get rid of him either.
But, I mean, couldn't there somehow... No. There can always be a recall if you get someone enough
I'm
people
not
to
so
sign
sure that
up.
that's true.
Really?
I do not think that's true. Huh. Anyway, in regard to Trey Radel, the Florida coke sniffer, who, by the way, of course, being a conservative Republican, voted many times to really put the screws to drug users. Also wanted to have people, in order to get food stamps, have to be drug tested. All right, Mr. Radel. Ed says, do you think that this Tea Party darling of Florida might be seeking some Obamacare as he goes into rehab for his alcoholism, his use of cocaine, his general mental delusion? I'll bet that his health care preferences will quickly change to Affordable Care Act so that he never has to admit to his Tea Party constituents that he's participating in the hated Obamacare. Listen, I don't know. I got a feeling he's not going to be in that seat too long.
Yes.
Well,
but it's interesting. Going back to Toronto, what's very interesting is I read something, I think it was the Wall Street Journal, that basically said even though, this guy is being a total fool, it's like a Saturday Night Live skit.
We're back in Canada?
Yeah. That there are still those people in the conservative suburbs, and that was what brought him in on a wave of what have you against.
And they're still
liberals.
loving him.
Oh yeah, they think like, oh, he's our guy.
Isn't that amazing?
He's going to push all those liberals in the East End and Rose Hill, and
it's really amazing that they're saying that he still has tons of support.
He pushed some like
suburbs.
7-year-old lady who was a city council member, knocked her down on the floor.
I saw that. He's just, he's...
And his brother is a jerk,
His brother
too.
is an equal jerk, and apparently the power.
Yeah,
the brother is the power.
Well.
But good God in heaven. If you were a Torontan, or whatever they call themselves...
Torontonian, I think.
Torontonian?
I think.
You would just be mortified. Better them than us.
Instead of okay, it's like, oi, Canada.
Oi, Canada. Yeah, unbelievable.
No.
Okay, we got to get a break in here, guys. We will return. I've got a much heavier duty kind of art-related story from Mr. Sokolowski, who, as we know, is our artist expert in residence.
Pretty cool.
Lynn Cullen Live.
Just in time for the holidays, Little's Shoes is your UGG headquarters. Little's has the largest selection of UGGs for men, women, and children to stay warm with shearling-lined boots, shoes, and slippers. Don't forget to get your hats, gloves, scarves, and more. Bring the entire family to view one of the largest in-store UGG shops in the U.S. All available at Little's Shoes, Pittsburgh's largest family shoe store. Forbes Avenue in Squirrel Hill or littleshoes.com.
Hi, I'm LeVar Burton, and I'm proud to be a book person. How do I choose a book? Sometimes it's the cover, sometimes it's the title. I guess I'm pretty visual. If a book's really impressing me and the writing is really good, I will peek and see what the last paragraph is, because the endings of books should rock you. I am a book person, and if you're a book person too, read to a child and spark a lifetime of ambition. Join me at bookpeopleunite.org, because reading is fundamental. A public service announcement brought to you by Reading is Fundamental, Library of Congress, and the Ad Council.
You're listening to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Once again, here's Lynn Cullen.
They're not getting picked. Like they're not specimens.
Okay.
Very funny.
Okay. We've talked about this story in the past, but I've got a little more information.
Ooh, okay.
This has to do with that extraordinary treasure trove of masterpieces. And I remember when last we spoke, I said to you, because of current German law, it could well be that none of those paintings will be returned to their
rightful owners.
And
well, because some also, to be specific about this, although some maybe were taken,
some were
paid. Yes, exactly.
Some were purchased, but I also want to say
under duress.
Under duress, right? So you can imagine, yeah. I'm here from the German government. We want to buy your art.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll give you
shiv.
Yeah, right, exactly. So it's pretty extraordinary, but it's not just this art was taken from private people, mostly from Jews. Mm-hmm. But also, this kind of art was already hanging in some
museums.
German museums. Mm-hmm. So the Nazis went into those German museums and grabbed that stuff off the walls as well. So there are German museums who now are seeing that some of their art is in this jerk's apartment. Mm-hmm. They want it back. Mm-hmm.
Well,
it turns out, no. Their odds of getting it back are next to none as well.
And this guy's really fighting it. He's this really elderly, falling apart man.
He sounds like he's insane. Anyway, here's what I want to get at. This is beyond belief to me, and it makes me so angry at the Germans. It really does. The law that is standing, that is preventing this art and its value, its beauty and its value, to return to where it belonged before it was plundered by the Nazis, the law is a Nazi law. The law...
Well, but to be fair, it's a law of Germany.
Excuse me, a law of the Third Reich.
Right, all right, but one could say... Well, we argued about this last time, but it's sort of like a law that was made during the time of the Civil War.
Okay.
I mean...
Yeah, right, okay, wait.
It can be repealed, but it is a law of the country that was standing...
It can be repealed.
In America,
70 years later, not one German government since has seen fit to repeal it. It is not as if this is some strange and hidden law that nobody knew about. Right. It's been known, and every German government since the fall of the Nazis has kept this wonderful law. This one they like.
Well, the thing is, wait. I would think, maybe I'm not about to sort of wipe the slate clean on that. And there's certainly some tune of, one hears of constant nascent fascism coming up again in Germany, let alone elsewhere. But it also may be, and I don't know the specifics of the law enough or the history there, but I have a feeling that if you were saying, just guys like this, I'm sure the law has complexities that would open a whole kettle of worms.
No, the kettle of worms is, of course, part of it. And here, my guess is what part of the kettle of worms is. About all sorts,
not just the Nazi era
is that, if they can have that, then I'm thinking some of this crap is probably hanging on the walls of a lot of German homes.
Yeah, probably.
Now, too. Right? And they got it through ill-gotten gain.
Well,
there's
even in this country, there's constantly in the last 30 years.
Know.
The High Museum, Cleveland Museum, who've had to send stuff back.
Okay.
And this was this was really more stealing than under a government, of recent antiquities. But, a lot of stuff that's have to be given. So it's like...
The sordid... No, there is a sordidness to the art world.
I would never disagree with that.
Sordidness. Here, despite the lengths, this is New York Times, despite the lengths Germany has gone to repair the moral and material damage done during World War II, for decades, the restitution of confiscated art was not a topic of discussion, and no German government has even sought to repeal this Nazi law. And in fact,
what's that
they
old
say,
adage? To the winner goes the spoils.
but they're the losers.
I know, well, but at one point they were the winners. That's all I'm saying.
But they lost. That's what makes this so unconscionable. This is, to me, is unconscionable.
I guess the part, this is a very big discussion which traverses more than just art. But I mean, it's the question of, at what point does any society, ours included, make reparations and restitution to those peoples, individual or groups, who have been maligned or illegally mistreated in the past? I mean, and if we did that on every level of every moment of impropriety, illegality, horror, etc., I mean, we'd have to go back zillions of civilizations. I'm not saying this stuff should stay, but I'm just saying it's a complicated thing. You know, to the victor go the spoils.
But again, I say.
Well, then right. But there's still some of those victors who don't want to admit that they're the losers.
Listen to this. And
living in Brazil.
Here is a respected conservative daily, the Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung. I don't know what it is.
Allgemeines.
Yeah. Okay. Allgemeines,
I think.
Yeah. Allgemeine Zeitung.
The newspaper.
Yeah, it's the newspaper. And last week, it did put out an editorial condemning the German government and condemning the country for refusing to make proper restitution. And he says...
Well, Frankfurt, that state is the most progressive part of Germany.
Okay, well, I don't
well,
give
that's
a
not
damn.
some of this. Well,
okay.
But I mean, where is this guy's? I can't remember. Where is this guy's house? I mean, where does he live?
I don't know.
I thought he was in Munich, which is like one of the most conservative.
The
parts
law's
of Germany.
endurance, he says, is part of the unsurpassed hypocrisy of German dealings with the art that the Nazis plundered. It is hard to believe, but this Nazi law has never been overturned by the German government. And there's going to be efforts made. There's this one guy who heads a museum, and he's going after the art he knows is his, and says, we will seek to have the work returned. I think, though, that the public museums have a certain moral claim to that art that once belonged to them. So, I mean, I don't care if it's difficult. I don't care if it opened cans of worms. I don't care if people are going to get embarrassed. You can't do what these people did and then hold the plunder. You can.
Except, I mean, the one thing I further want to add, no, I don't disagree with that at all. But as we know in our own country, there are certain laws about certain things that when the wealthy and the powerful might be embarrassed. Let's not even go farther about lose anything of financial value or prestige or economics. They might be embarrassed. Phone calls are made. We know that. So.
Well, they did point out that in an earlier instance, when some guy like this man, whose apartment was full of this art, some other guy who had a huge trove of this stuff, he was a man of some morals. He turned it all back to the state, and sometimes gave it back, sometimes requested a nominal fee if in fact a nominal fee had been paid. That is what should be done.
Yeah, well, that takes great moral courage. Most people
Hello,
don't have
caller.
it.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
I have one thing to say, and I'll make it quick. You can't take all of those things and then not return them, correct?
Well, that's what I would think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I agree with you, Lynn. I understand your point of view. Yes, what you're saying is true. But let's take a look at where we live and where we sit right now and how the land that this country is
you mean for the Native Americans?
Was acquired.
The Native Americans.
Yeah.
Well, I know, and it is, again, we have made, through fits and starts, some efforts on the part of our government to make restitution. As you know, now, these native tribes actually they are nations within our nation. They in many respects are governed by their own laws. And
but that is putting a very light spin on their situation. I mean, the nations, like you mentioned, within our nations are completely subservient to our rules. If the United States of America wants to do something to them, they can absolutely do it with impunity. And we've done it in the past. Our government has done it in the past.
Well, I don't know. I mean,
the only reason they have a nation is because the United States government allows them to have a nation. So, all of it is wrong, and I agree completely with you, but let's not be too far up on our high horses.
Sure. But these
are
of course. Yeah, okay. I understand that, but we're talking about like this is a work of art. That's different than we took all their land. I don't know how we took their land and killed their. And this piece of art was taken, let's say, from somebody who we rounded up, and we did. We killed them. We took all their art. And now we won't give it back
to the one to the middle of the desert.
I mean, it's unbelievable. And I will say, it is in my lifetime seeing what has happened to the Native Americans who live where I grew up, and that is the Oneida Nation. And when I grew up, I was appalled. I mean, the name of the country club that the big country club at the time I was growing up was called Oneida, and it was on what had.
And I'm sure there were members of that nation in the members of the country club.
No, they were caddies.
No, I know.
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
So the only Native Americans you see, they were caddying on what used to be their own land.
Right.
Even as a child, I was aware of that, ashamed of it. What's amazing since then is that the Oneida Nation is rich as hell. They are rich as hell. Why? Because like other nations, the state or whoever, the
casinos,
feds, gambling. Mm-hmm. And the only casinos are run by them. All that money that is poured into them means that every single Oneida member of that nation gets, pretty big amounts of income. Mm-hmm. They build their own schools. They have their own, I'm telling you, this is not, I remember how it used to be. I remember the shacks they lived in. And now I see these impressive, I know my late dad did some business with the nation, and was just mightily impressed. And I have also met some of these leaders of the Oneida Nation because they have been supportive of some things that my father left behind. And missions that he left behind to further bring social justice to people, and at certain events which they will attend, and I have sat with some of them, and hello, we're talking about not only college educated, we're talking PhD, we're talking, now, I don't know that not every Native American tribe has gotten such, has made that kind of progress.
Well, I mean, the issue of this
but
is...
slowly it has happened
one of the
there.
problems, I think, with this is, I remember sitting with someone when I once gave a lecture in North Dakota, I think, or somewhere, or Minnesota, very high up. This was a big issue. And the big problem is, and I certainly agree with what PJ was saying, but for due to history, the Indian nations, we did take them over and blah, 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 blah. And at this point, they are part of the United States of America. And as such, unless they are a separate nation, which they are not, there are certain laws, etc., that our nation as a nation believes in. And there have been a number of cases, just like some of the cases that have happened vis-a-vis child molestation among the Hasidic, where someone is found to molest their child, and then that person just goes against his tribe, so to speak, with inverted commas, and then is absolutely blacklisted by the whole community.
Right.
And that's happened certainly in the Native American community. And there's also that group of people who, I think that what you're talking about is people who took, that horrible old saying, lemons and made lemonade vis-a-vis the casinos, and they've used it by playing the race card in a smart way and getting the land and the abilities to do this. But then there are some who would like to go back to the 16th century. And, that you can't go backwards. You can be a Native American and proud of me, Polish American and all that, but I'm not going to end up being the pierogi maker for the rest of my life and dancing polkas. And in that, there has to be a point where one would hope that these First Nations peoples, as they would like to be called,
move forward
and take the best of their traditions and teach it to their young people, but don't say, let's go back to, riding ponies and throwing arrows, unless it's just for a rodeo.
I have to say, I think I've told this story before, that I once went to a powwow of the Oneida.
I did that once, too.
Of the Oneida Nation, and I was blown away. We were sitting in almost sort of a natural amphitheater, sitting up on the hills, and there was a lot of wonderful drums and dancing going on below us, and but also there were American flags waving, and a lot of they're very proud of their service in the military.
Right. But weren't there at one point, again through segregation, there were whole troops that were just
I don't
Native
know
troops.
that. I don't know.
There was a famous one that Flyers, Air Force Flyers. I remember there was a movie about it.
Indians or the Tuskegee Airmen?
No. Not Tuskegee.
Well, you also know the Indians, the code breakers, the Navajo.
Yeah. Right.
Were they Navajo or there was some Western, Southwestern tribe? Literally, I don't know if we would have won the war without them. They helped break it's I don't know.
That was Ellen Turing.
Yeah.
And then those Apaches or whoever it was. I can't remember.
Well, we're always, we all have blood on our hands. We all have dirty, it's true. But that is not an excuse to something that is so still fresh.
Yeah, no.
To not make it right. You can't. You got all these works of art. You can, I'm sure in many instances, trace exactly where they came from, that there is not an immediate effort to return those to their rightful owners. There is no excuse. And it's never an excuse that, look we took this from them and we took that from this.
However, I would just say though, if we're gonna go be Schweigevalting about this, and rightly so, what about forget the art? What about these people who we're constantly finding where the concentration kept people, and 50 years later they're still hiding, and that's far more deleterious in terms of German law, ferreting out people who killed other people, than because they owned the Kafka. Kokoschka or whatever.
Well, one of the ways, though, that they were able to get this stuff is they killed the people who owned it.
Yeah, well, that's
okay.
True. Yeah, right. Well, not necessarily the guy who bought it.
Right. Well, yeah, but hey, I got a deal here. Now, did you ask where you got the deal? Okay, right. Dirty hands.
Fell off the back of a truck.
Dirty hands. Dirty hands. We're taking a break.
Stick around for more with Lynn Cullen Live after this.
Go to the all-new bergbargains.com for great deals on gift cards from your favorite local restaurants, bars, museums, attractions, and shows. Log on now for great deals from Ibiza, Atria's Verde, the Improv Comedy Club, and City Theater. The all-new bergbargains.com, Pittsburgh's best bargains, bergbargains.com.
Download the CP Haps app to find out what's happening in Pittsburgh. It's the fun and free app that puts the most popular events at your fingertips. Text EVENTS to 77948 to download now. Available on the App Store and Google Play. Brought to you by Pittsburgh City Paper.
Now, it's back to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com.
Okay. Hey, by the way, we're talking about the nuclear option yesterday with Harry Reid saying, and I'm going to... And there's a lot of sources today saying he might actually do it today, go after the filibuster, which is...
Oh, good.
Yeah, well, we'll see. We will see. Damn, what was I going to talk to you about? Damn. I had the subject coming back, and it just went right out my...
I don't know. Ho, is that...
Oh, no.
Oh, I have to say, my two most hated things in Pittsburgh for the 17 years I've been here have been the Three Rivers Arts Festival and Light Up Night. I much preferred when it was called Sparkle City or whatever it was.
Sparkle Season.
Yeah.
Sparkle Season, and then, of course, the right-wingers said, that's a war on Christmas! That's a war on Christmas! What do you mean Sparkle Season? It's Christmas!
Yeah, but Light Up Night is not any more Christmassy than Sparkle Season.
Part of the war on Christmas!
Oh, that manger that they always...
Oh, my God! I said, I take the bus, and I'm on the bus the other day, and they were putting up that manger. Manger? It's like a... Wow! I guess that's as big as the one... What is that? The one that's as big as the one in, St. Peter's Square or something? It is a...
They don't put up a manger in St. Peter's Square. No, they don't.
Well, someplace like that. Why wouldn't they put up a manger in St. Peter's Square?
Because they don't.
We put one up at the U.S. Steel Building.
Because St. Peter's is obviously Christian. This is about Christianizing a neutral business site. That's where the shit hits the fan. A church or a synagogue or a mosque can do whatever they want on their own turf. But,
God almighty. People are such a pain. Aren't they?
Yes. I was like, do you remember that show? What was it called? It was sort of funny, actually. The OC. It was a story. It was like on these soap operas.
See, Jeff, whatever you're doing, Jeff turns and said, yes, okay.
But there was a character on there who...
Chrismukkuh.
Yeah, right. Yeah, was his mother was Christian, the father was Jewish, I think, wasn't it? Anyway, and the actor's name was Seth something or other. I can't remember his name. And he decided there should be something called Chrismukkuh. And he combined it. And the show was on for like 5 years. They really caught fire, this Chrismukkuh. And now they're doing this whole thing because this year, the first night of Hanukkah.
Thanksgiving-a-kuh.
Yeah. And I've seen all these terrible things of menorahs
made out of turkeys.
On them.
Yeah. Oh, God. I don't know. People are silly. People are mad.
I don't think one of our pilgrims was named Rebbe Cohen.
One of the pilgrims? You don't think the Jews were... the Jews weren't on the Mayflower.
Because it was all...
No, those were, those were actually... Yeah, they were... Yuck. They were Puritans. I don't think I would have been real friendly with the Puritans, frankly.
Do you think the Indians...
Given a choice between the savages and the Puritans, I would have taken the...
Hey, white girl, have some cranberries.
I would have definitely... The savages would be where I was at. Oh, man. Oh, gosh. Well, this is so bizarre, Tom. I had a definite subject, and it went right out of my head. Well, no.
Well, we have 8 minutes. You might fling back into your head.
Well, let's think of something else then. There's nothing. So when does the Three Rivers Arts Festival's gone. That's in the summer.
Thank God.
And you hate it because you think most of the art is crap.
Yes, it's dreadful.
Is it possible there's one nice piece somewhere here or there?
Oh, well, sure, but one nice piece amidst 700 booths of shit. And stinky, smelly food and horrids pullulating around my building.
Pullulating?
Pullulating, like popping up.
Well, that's what you get for living where you live.
I suppose.
You want.
And most of the time, the people
you want to be trendy and live downtown.
Oh, trendy and live downtown. I'd rather be trendy and live in the suburbs.
Oh, speaking of that,
it came back to her.
There's more poor people in the suburbs than in the city.
Hooray!
Yeah.
Send them to the suburbs with their dirty, smelly feet. And their culottes and their cargo shorts and their flip-flops. Send them away.
In Allegheny County, 61% of people living in poverty live
wow, that's surprising.
outside of the city of Pittsburgh.
Do they say what specific suburbs?
Well, of course, not the right ones.
Yes, I'm sure they're all in Fox Chapel and Zwickley.
No, they're not.
Zwickley Heights?
No. And then you find out what the suburbs are. Well,
I'm sure those people have bejeweled flip-flops.
Yeah. No, they're in the generally where they are is in smaller. You got to figure all those little
hamlets,
depressed mill towns up and down rivers. Maybe I forget what they call it, that initial ring of suburbs. So a lot of poorer people escaping the high taxes of the city, move into Penn Hills, which ends up having, and Penn Hills does have a very high, fast-growing number.
I must say, not to offend
poor.
any of your listeners or our listeners, but I've always found Penn Hills creepy.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it?
It's very sort of
Twilight
Zone-y.
I don't know what to me, it's just amorphous. I can't quite figure out what it is. I mean, and I've been in lovely homes in Penn Hills.
Yeah, of course, yes.
And because of the hills, there's some gorgeous, gorgeous places. But there's something, first of all, it's so big.
I always think it could be a place where they would have set Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Really? You think?
In Penn Hills.
And there's no real center.
Yes.
You know,
it's like that area outside of, west of L.A. called the something Valley. Oh no, what's it called? The Inland Empire.
Oh God, I don't know. But listen to this. Here's what really freaked me out.
Yes, tell me.
In the Penn Hills School District, the number of students identified as homeless increased from, get this, 2008. There were 8 students attending Penn Hills High who really did not have a home.
Okay.
Which to me is already beyond belief. You know what the number is now? 82.
What?
82 are homeless. Homeless.
Well, and that
Wilkinsburg. 245 students in Wilkinsburg schools. Homeless. That is 24%. Now, here's where I just want to say this. This is unconscionable.
Oh, yeah. I would bet even that's a low number because to get these, you have to have people who are willing to be assessed or counted or whatever. I bet there are many more who just, run from the census takers.
You want to know how many homeless students there are in Pittsburgh public schools?
Oh, God, I don't even want to think about it. 1,000.
718.
Oh, it's just unconscionable.
It is. It's unconscionable. Oh, we're the greatest country. Oh, yeah.
I remember reading a story a few years ago that, in one of those projects on the Hill, there were a number of children who were the equivalent, you would say, feral children because their families, the parents had fled to the South for jobs and what have you, and left the children with their grandparents or grandmothers generally. And then the grandmother, in some cases, just died. Or became incapacitated. And these kids lived in the hallways of these projects. And sometimes people, so at least they were warm or quasi-warm, and people sometimes would give them a hot dog or something. But they were literally like feral children.
Well, listen, here's the thing. Here's the executive director of South Hills Interfaith Ministries speaking. And his area, he services, South Hills Interfaith Ministries, service people in Baldwin, Whitehall, Bethel Park, Mount Lebanon, Upper St. Clair, and South Park.
Some of those
and
are
he
very
says
wealthy
demand for their services has grown drastically in the last 5 years. So now we're not doing Wilkinsburg. We're not doing. We're doing Baldwin, Whitehall, Bethel Park, Mount Lebanon, Upper St. Clair, and South Park. And he said that the problem is that a lot of people, when they fall into poverty, they end up selling their car. They don't have, okay? They have, and transportation, and PennDOT has, the Port Authority has cut a lot of the service lines to those outer areas, and they cannot then get to a job and he said, so our whole service network that was set up does not in any way align with the new geography of poverty.
And this is just so when Congress has cut the amount of
and they're
food
going to food stamps. Yeah, and they're still intending to cut food stamps. So 1 in 10 households lacks access to a vehicle in Allegheny County, and the Port Authority bus cuts have made it very difficult for people to go to job interviews, let alone hold a job. And we just seem to make it harder and harder and harder. Jared Day, before he left, gave me a book to read, and I am going to read it. The book is called Why Don't They Just Get a Job? And it's what you hear from me. Just get a job. I see the want ads, blah, 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 get a job. That is so easy to say till you know reality of people's lives. Yeah. That they have no transportation. They have no this or no that. Mm-hmm. And this book is, I guess, somewhat about a pilot program in Cincinnati that Jared is partly responsible for perhaps bringing here, which instead of looking at a problem like this as just this, a problem of such huge dimensions.
What are we going to do about it?
Right. You sort of do one-on-one.
Exactly, yeah.
You do one-on-one. You find, okay, this person, what are the problems? Find out what they are. Is it transportation? Fix that. Is it some mental or health issue? Let's fix that. If it's this, if it's that. And Cincinnati, apparently, is already, and people are looking. People's heads are popping up. Foundations are looking. This Cincinnati thing is working.
Well, because what very often happens with that, and I've just found this from the nonprofit side, I mean, it was like arts and education, not social services, but too often I think some of the foundations have been guilty of it. The minute they do let's set up a commission, and let's then get and then the money is spent on some executive director, and I don't mean this malevolently, but as you say, get people to say, hey, you take care of Mary. You call Mary every morning, and then you talk to Bob, and then build on that. I mean, and that's the way things work, because then people know they have a person who they respond to, who is responsive to them, and this whole kind of crazy infrastructure and pages of documents and.
Well, enough. I think I'm going to make an effort to get these people behind this program on.
It's a great idea.
The next time you hear somebody say, "Why don't they just get a job?" Tell them to get an education. Because it's a stupid thing to say.
Of course.
It's a stupid thing to say. And Jared did say the only people they work with, there has to be 2 criteria for them. They have to be willing and able. Mm-hmm. So they're not, if somebody doesn't want the help and they're so given up, willing and able, they take these people in, they work with them, and they are finding them on solid ground jobs, and there's next to no recidivism in terms of dropping back out. This is a program that could work. So for those of us who are always wringing our hands and pulling our hair, and our default position is despair, it's really, really heartening to know that there are people who say, what? Let's just think what really needs to be done, and then they start to do it. But this many homeless children, how can a kid go anywhere? How do they go to school and they don't have a home to go home to? It's beyond belief to me. And they don't eat, and they don't this and that. And this, in this wealthy nation, we should hang our heads. I was beating up on the Germans earlier. Let's end by beating up on Americans. Despicable to allow it. And on that happy note, we end this lovely hour that we have spent together and look forward to spending another one tomorrow with Mr. Chris Potter. Toodaloo.
Bye.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.